if someone asks you, okay, so what's the purpose of doing futures work? One good answer is people are doing new things or they're doing things differently. Very simple answer to a penetrating question. Some of those things might actually end up being social innovations. Some of you are already working on or in social innovations. I know this already from speaking to some of you. And in some ways, this is a deliberate focus within foresight work, because clearly we live in a time which is almost overwhelmed by technical change. Technical change is very rapid. It doesn't ask anyone's permission. There's a strong dynamic of technological innovation established in the world that is driven, as far as I can tell, by the most powerful organizations on the planet. And individual development and social development has a very different dynamic. And as you get more familiar with the four-quadrant model and some of its more in-depth details, you'll see that dynamic modeled, and you'll see very clearly why it is that the situation I've described exists. So in many ways, this is an attempt to provide some sort of corrective to that, to say that if, okay, things are being driven by these organizational and technical forces, what are the social forces that can be deployed in this direction? So social innovations are a result of deliberate human effort. Once again, you won't be surprised, it involves a legitimation process. And you have to be ready for conflict and resistance. That's something that will come up in the model. I'll run you through a brief outline of the T cycle, or the transformative cycle, which describes some of this. There is implicit in many people's minds the notion of doing things better, but we also have to remember that some of the social innovations that we have and have seen in recent history are actually not things that we particularly are proud of. Concentration camps, for example. So going back to the rationale, there's a constant disjuncture between technical change and social change. It's modeled, I think, most starkly, as I said before, in education systems. They've adopted the solution of putting a big wall up around and just facing inward, and basically ignoring a lot of that change, except for the internet, which they like very much. Some of them do. Here's a simple version. For everything we're talking about, there's a simple version. Some of this work actually can be done with junior-age kids. I've seen some very good work carried out by primary school teachers with kids, helping them understand the principles of social innovation, and then giving them simple, safe examples to work with, so that they can, at that very early age, know concretely that yes, they can intervene and they can actually make a difference if they go about it the right way. So here's a simple version that really can be used, as I say, in those early stages. Get informed, research something, discuss the conclusions, and this is a safety stage for young people. Don't just go running off on your own ideas, but check with teachers, parents, others, and working out how to present a proposal. In one example that I heard of, in fact, I met the teacher who did this. A class of junior-age kids had been looking at packaging of kids' toys. And they saw how, in the pictures, the old gender stereotypes were operating, where the boys were playing and the girls were looking on. They thought, well, this just doesn't make sense to us. I mean, girls are just as active as boys. Why can't we see this pictured on these boxes? And so they actually wrote a letter with the teacher's help to the manufacturer. They got the manufacturer to see the point of view, and they changed the packaging to reflect a kind of equal gender balance there. So it wasn't so much about sexual politics as it was about getting the kids to see that there was something that could be dealt with in an intelligent and sane way, and it led to a real change. However, in many cases, there is opposition, and sometimes you might have to keep going for some time. So the idea of not giving up is important. There's a sub-dynamic to that, which is that unsuccessful social innovators can become very bitter. If they're trying for years to make something happen and there's something wrong about the topic or the way they've approached it, or if they're not actually up to it, then you can find people who've been around for some time banging their heads on brick walls and getting pretty bitter. So just be aware of that. Two key dynamics at work here are obviously empowerment, and the other one, that there's many others, but I want to focus on, is the burdens and costs of change. I came across this idea some time ago, and I called it the empowerment principle. And this is one of those ideas that really need to be threaded throughout all kinds of organizations, and particularly in education systems. A lot of young people, there's plenty of evidence, if you look at David Hicks' chapter in the knowledge base about images of the future that are held by young people, you'll get just a quick take on the literature which describes how young people see the future, and it describes a little bit of research about their hopes and fears. That literature suggests that there is a great deal of fear, and on the whole, I think it's based on reasonable possibilities. But to understand that it's the response to what is feared that matters, rather than the stimulus that caused the fear in the first place, can actually change the focus of the whole game. And there are very simple workshop techniques, a couple of which are in the Futures for the Third Millennium, which can help young people refocus their attention, and older people as well, of course, on human institutional responses. And here is one that I developed some time ago. I'm not going to go through it now, but it's simply basically asking people to consider low quality responses and high quality responses, and then posing the question, what is a high quality response to that which is feared? And this is a process tool. It doesn't take one person's view, i.e. the teacher, and read it on the kids. It actually seeds in people's minds a valuable process question, which is, what do you mean by a high quality response? What do you mean? What is a high quality? So putting that question in there can lead to all kinds of thinking and development. As you'll see from the example, if you check it out, there are a number of ways to go forward from there, looking for strategies, looking for resources, looking for people, and also looking in the present for those seeds of change that maybe support what you're trying to do. Again, there's a whole literature about all that. High quality responses mean that usually that fears and concerns are seen in a wider context. Many fears are overstated. There's a cycle of negativity which a lot of young people in particular can get into. And images of the future are only just that. They actually can be renegotiated and changed. The work of Fred Pollack, the Dutch futurist, he wrote some work on the image of the future translated by Elise Boulding, really went into that in some detail about how social images of the future affect what people think are possible. So the locus of power always resides within people, not so much in disembodied images. However, it's worth reading this. A social system doesn't move smoothly from one state to another. Something must come apart in order for something new to come together. But for individuals within the system, there's no clear grasp of the next stable state, only a picture of the one to be lost. Hence, coming apart, the breakdown of losing a job, breakdown of an organization, something going badly wrong, the coming apart, whatever that means, carries uncertainty and anguish, since it puts at risk the basis for self-identity that the system had provided. So you need to really understand that if you're going to talk social innovation, realize that there are costs of change. It's one of the reasons why we tend to be so conservative and we don't like change and we resist it, because there are all these hidden costs.